to this month's Lunch and Learn. I'm very excited. We have an amazing speaker and an amazing topic and an amazing crowd. And online, I don't think you can see, but we have a group of friends also joining online. So a couple things. When Reverend Lewis, he'll do his presentation, and then there'll be times for question and answers. And it's exciting because you have a chance to ask questions directly, and we'll also have people from online ask questions. But please, as a courtesy, hold your hand up and we'll bring a mic to you, and that will make it where you can have an amplified voice in this room, and then also it will connect to the people on Zoom. So we look forward to hearing those questions and having you connect. I just wanted to give a couple coming attractions. Our next Lunch and Learn is from ARC, which is the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. It's an amazing group of people that are working with people as they come out of prison to help with jobs, housing, to reintegrate into society. So that is going to be on June 12th, and you can find a flyer. All of our flyers are actually on the back table, so feel free to find those. If you're feeling like taking a little trip, next week, May 21st, we have our Lunch and Learn in Santa Barbara at our retreat center. This is going to be an organization called Good Samaritan, and they do work. They have a shelter for homeless folks, but they also have a job training program, a farm that does organic vegetables. And again, if you feel like driving up, we welcome you. And if you can't, then all of our programs are online, so you could find the link. And again, here's our flyer. Okay, this is something I'm excited about, is we have a film club. So you might know that Immaculate Heart sponsors the LA International Short Film Festival on their opening night. Their opening night slate is a slate of justice films. And if you ever want to do something very Hollywood, there's a red carpet and everything. So it's really fun to come to, and you'll be getting a flyer soon. We just set the dates at the theater. But we have, throughout the year, to keep the conversation going, we highlight some of those films that were shown at the film festival. So on May 26th, just online, you can sign up, bring your own popcorn, sit on your favorite comfy couch, and watch these great movies, and you'll have a chance to visit with the filmmakers or people who were featured in the movie. So that's that. So I think for those who have been here before, you know you're welcome to stop and get food. The bathrooms are out to the outside and to the left. And I want to bring up Sherry Purcell, our PEO, to do a proper introduction to the community and to our speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the wonderful Pam Hope that we have leading us through all of this. Woohoo! We're really glad to have everybody here today. A lot of new faces, and we're excited to welcome Dr. Brogdon to speak to us. Before we begin, though, we're going to start with our Power Up practice. So if you've been here before, you know the drill on this. There are these, I think we have these bookmarks out on the table if you want to grab one to remind yourself about doing Power Up with the Immaculate Heart community. We started this a year ago after the election, about the time that ICE was invading our city, when people started going into hiding, and our country started to go down a path that was something that we wanted to try to counter with love and faith. So Power Up, we're going to ask you, if you want to participate, to just center yourself, put your feet on the floor, close your eyes if you want, and put your hand over your heart. And what we're going to do is breathe very deeply, deeply into our hearts and pull up that heart energy and send it out. So breathe deeply into your heart, power it up, and send out those waves of love to our community, to the Los Angeles area. There's still a lot of pain and fear that's been generated in our city. Many of our frontline workers are here, and they need compassion and love also. So please envision surrounding all those folks with your love energy. This time, breathe into your heart again, power it up strongly, and send those waves of love out across our nation. We are a nation in search of a moral compass right now, and we can lead the way with our love and our faith. Breathe in again, power it up, and send those love waves around the world to Mother Earth. There's hardly a place on our planet right now that isn't in some kind of chaos or suffering. And let's raise that energy of love and compassion starting here today. And finally, breathe in again, power up your heart, and send that love out to each other in this room. We're all carrying something, we're all dealing with something in our lives, and we're living in a time of difficulty right now in many ways. So let's embrace each other as we start our program today. And with that, I say, let it be, and so it is. Amen. Thank you. So once again, welcome to our Lunch and Learn. I like to start with a little background about the Immaculate Heart community for those of you who are with us for the first time. In 1970, the Immaculate Heart community evolved from a canonical community of nuns to the community we are today. We're no longer nuns. We don't live in a convent. We're an inclusive, ecumenical, lay community of men, women, gay, straight, married, single. We call ourselves a community without walls because we have members not only here in Los Angeles, but all over California, all over this country, a couple of members up in Canada and some in England right now. We're celebrating that. So we accept new members annually, so please check out our website. Check out our Friends of the Heart initiative, sign up, and you'll be on our mailing list. And again, remember that we have these Lunch and Learns every month, and we hope to see you back again. So again, we started this Lunch and Learn series, Pam and I did about 3 years ago, and it gives us an opportunity to live out the Immaculate Heart Community goal statement, which calls us to hold reverence for all creation and build relations in society which foster access for all persons to truth, dignity, and full human development, and to strategically change practices and situations which impede such access. And we think that one way to build relations and to strategically change those practices is by bringing like-minded people together in gatherings like this, where we showcase our heroes and our sheroes in the nonprofit world. And when we meet in a Lunch and Learn, we practice 3 things: educate, pray, act. So we're here to educate ourselves about justice, social justice issues. We ask you to pray in your own faith tradition about the issues and the problems and things you're hearing about here. And then finally, find a way to act. We believe in putting our faith into action. And so as you're listening to Dr. Brogdon speak about from chaos to community, Martin Luther King Jr. and the urgent work of justice today, think about his message, how it's impacting you, and what you might do differently when you leave this meeting than you did before. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Louis Brogdon, who is the Executive Director of JustFaith Ministries, where he leads national efforts to form, educate, and mobilize faith communities to pursue justice, build relationships across difference, and live more fully into calling of the gospel. His writing and public witness engage urgent questions about power, allegiance, and what it means to speak truthfully about the state of the nation's soul. Across his work, Dr. Brogdon calls communities to resist despair and to cultivate the courage necessary for justice, renewal, and faithful public witness. He has served in numerous leadership and teaching roles in undergraduate and graduate institutions, including Simmons College of Kentucky, Claflin University, Bluefield University, Louisville Presbyterian Theological Seminary, and BSK Theological Seminary. His international teaching includes lectures in Jerusalem, Haiti, Oxford University, and the Bahamas. And he has taught widely on the life, thought, and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. About his work, he is quoted as saying, "At a time when many people feel overwhelmed, fragmented, or discouraged, JustFaith offers something profoundly needed. It offers a way of forming people who are spiritually grounded, socially engaged, and hopeful about the possibilities of real change. This work matters. It changes lives. It changes churches. And by God's grace, it helps change the world." Now, the American community is not a church, but many of our members have engaged in several course modules from JustFaith Ministries. And I can speak from personal experience in saying that the curriculum is highly respected in our community. It's comprehensive and well-structured to effect deep understanding from a spiritual perspective, and it's meaningful change in a personal and communal level. So I'm really pleased to have Dr. Brogdon with us today, so please join me in giving him a warm welcome, Dr. Brogdon.
Well, good morning, friends. As the psalmist declares, this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. What a beautiful group. It is an honor and a privilege to journey all the way from Louisville, Kentucky to sunny Southern California. You all need to pray for me in your own tradition that I go back home. It is so beautiful, so wonderful here. The hospitality has been tremendous, and I do want to express my profound gratitude for the opportunity to be in community with you. In the words of Mordecai, for such a time as this. It is great to see so many friends and partners of JustFaith Ministries. Thank you for being here and everything that has gone into making these few days here in Los Angeles a success. Now, before I get to the presentation, I want to just give you the bad news that you are going to see me again. I really believe that God is up to some wonderful things, and a part of us forging ahead and being effective in this work of justice is better coordination and partnering and staying engaged as we take up this work. And JustFaith we are celebrating 25 years this fall as an organization that has been affecting incredible change in so many people's lives and communities. And as the new executive director, it is my sacred task and honor to deepen and to expand the scope of this work. And in order to do that, folks are going to have to get used to seeing me showing up in communities and finding ways to partner with you in this work that God has called us to. Now, when I do come back, what I hope that, today's presentation is going to be so inspirational that you're going to want to have some follow-up conversations. Now, until I return, I am giving you homework. I do miss being a professor, and so this is one of the ways I kind of get to live out the vocation of a professor while also promoting and growing the Just Faith brand. We want to get you on our mailing list, not to bombard your inbox with, information that you won't need. But I'm going to be talking about a lot of the articles and pieces that I have written, and you're going to want to follow up and read some of those things. And so as to encourage you to join the mailing list in this growing network of the exciting work that on the back half of my talk, I want to talk a little bit more about what we're going to be doing as an organization going forward with me as the new executive director. I come bearing a gift, all right? So for those who scan that QR code, we're going to give away a complimentary copy of a book that every person that's doing the work of justice needs to have in their library. And this is a book that's not only the basis of today's talk, but if you want to understand the nature of the challenges that we are facing, we have just witnessed what the Supreme Court did with one of the most important and hard-fought gains from the civil rights struggle, which is the Voting Rights Act. And this is the second time that has been stripped, and the level of stripping this last time, it has dealt a devastating blow for the African American community and for so many people who are committed to the cause of justice. You'll want to be on our mailing list because a statement that I wrote, will be going out today to just help you to understand the significance of this decision, to reflect on all that happened in Selma, the tremendous sacrifices that were paid by many who put it on the line so that we can be a real democracy. And then at the end, there are some practical steps you can do besides sitting on the sideline and saying, oh, this is so terrible. That there are some things we need to do together so that we can continue the work of resistance. So scan that QR code. Someone's going to get a complimentary copy of this book. And when I come back, maybe we can go up to that nice retreat center in Santa Barbara and do a little book study. It's just a suggestion. All right, so I want to begin because before I dive into some of what Dr. King talks about in this book, I do want to begin with scripture. Both my master's thesis and PhD dissertation is in the area of New Testament studies and its intersection with African American religion. So I am an avid student of the teachings of Jesus, New Testament letters, and one of my favorite passages comes out of Luke chapter 12. And it's a passage where Jesus says something that strikes people in a particular kind of way, because during times of social conflict, there is always this push that we need to get together. We need to work together. We need to move away from the conflict. But in Luke 12, Jesus said, I did not come to bring peace, but the sword. And this image of Jesus who comes to create the very thing that many times we're trying to squash and move beyond is very odd. And he talks about dividing father from son and mother from daughter. It's an enigmatic passage that a lot of times, well, Jesus is the Prince of Peace, but Jesus is also someone who wants to divide those who want to be loyal to God from those that do not. And often what happens in moments of social conflict and controversy is it is an opportunity for folks to see where they really stand in relation to the gospel. When it's convenient, when it's easy, when it's popular, Folks love throwing around the name of Christian, the name of Christ. I'm a follower of Jesus, but when it's time to put it on the line, when it's time to take a stand, you really find out who the church really is. I think that's some of what Jesus was getting at in this passage. And then the passage ends with these words. He said to the crowd, when you see a cloud rising in the west, immediately you say, it's going to rain, and it does. And when the south wind blows, you say, it's going to be hot, and it is. Hypocrites, you know how to interpret the appearance of the earth and the sky. How is it that you don't know how to interpret this present time? Jesus challenging the crowds because they don't have an understanding of the times in which they were living. That God had come in human flesh and was standing in front of them, and they did not know it. They were literally arguing with their Creator, questioning their Creator, not listening to their Creator, not discerning the time. When I preach this text, which I'm going to do in Oakland, and if you want to drive up to hear the sermon on Sunday morning, you'd be more than welcome to, but I know the traffic here will probably preclude you from doing that. I preach this text with the question, do you know the time? And so often people don't know the time. That one of the things King talks about in the book are those who are asleep during a revolution. That they can be in this unique, special moment, completely unaware of the unique nature of the moment in which they find themselves, because if you're going to be good stewards of the following, good stewards of your time, good stewards of your intellectual and spiritual energy, focused in the South to the deep north, getting into these urban centers. And he found out in the second phase of the civil rights movement that the progressive political establishment that was on board when it comes to, getting rid of the system of people drinking out of our separate accommodations. Progressives were like, you can't do that. Don't treat this. But once King pivoted and says the deeper issue with this country is really it's economic inequality. That how we do economics, wealth generation in this country, the progressive establishment washed their hands of Dr. King. Okay, and there was no energy to do the deeper structural work because it was going to cost them something. All right, so one of the big issues was economics. He also saw, because you start to have the uptick with the Black Power movement, and more within the Black community who were saying, look, we don't need white people helping us. Okay, they're either trying to take over our movement, or when every time it's time for them to pay the price, they bail on us. Okay. Now that's in the past. Okay, we don't have that problem today. I mean, so many institutions couldn't stop doing DEI fast enough. Okay, they were like, we shouldn't do this, but we can't lose our funding, and just dismantled DEI programs all over the country. And then it goes to the Supreme Court. They strike it down. The Trump administration says, oh, we'll just drop it, but the damage had already been done. Had more progressives been willing to lawyer up, to fight, to say we're going to stand on our principles instead of worry about the bottom line, we wouldn't have this kind of situation. So sometimes when you have these nationalistic movements who are sort of moving into sectarianism, I don't know if you've heard of this grassroots movement called the American Descendants of Slavery, the ADOS movement, which is a large grassroots movement, and they don't have much interest in interracial coalitions and partnerships and working together because there's so much broken trust, and not really thinking that folks are going to lay it on the line when it counts most. Now, King was somebody who refused to follow that. And what's powerful about the chapter is he shows an ability to understand something that he disagrees with. I mean, it's incredible. You read the chapter on Black Power. It's one of the longer chapters in the book where he doesn't agree with Stokely, but he really unpacks that he understands why they feel that way. But he thinks at the end of the day, you can't get to community with sectarianism, that we have to work together. We have to learn how to listen, and his argument was being together is the way you get there. So before you ever have Black Lives Matter, they were talking about Black Power in 67 and 68. And we saw in 2020 just millions of dollars going to Black Lives Matter, and we're not sure what was done with all the money. Where are the sort of outcomes and reports? Okay, we got all this money. Here's what we did. The King saw that some of the disorganized ways that even within the Black community, that we needed to do a better job with coordination of our work, reporting things out to the public. He also talked about the problem that it's just going to be a pattern of having our white sisters and brothers resisting real economic equality. There's just this pattern that keeps repeating itself. You have calls for justice, There's some kind of triggering incident. It spills over into the streets. And instead of trying to address the structural issues, it's how do we stop all the unrest? And it's usually done by offering up some kind of token, okay? So, probably the most lasting thing that it came out of 2020 is we got Juneteenth as a holiday. We were calling for, laws around policing. Can we change how history is taught in the country? That's structural. Guess what America said? No, but we'll give you Juneteenth. And some organizations did. Man, they were very, very generous, especially people giving to our HBCUs. And that's something that's very, very important. We're sort of in a renaissance period with HBCUs where they're having a resurgence. African Americans are having very, very difficult experiences in what we call PWIs, predominantly white institutions. And so now you're looking at enrollments in HBCUs that are just, they're on the increase. So you think of a Mackenzie Scott and just how much of a gift she has been to HBCUs, because these are institutions that have ties all the way back to, Reconstruction institutions that were coming on the scene during Jim Crow, and they've been on the front lines educating African-American children. And when you think about Black doctors, Black nurses, Black teachers, HBCUs are the ones that's really at a disproportionate rate producing these folks. And, but the PWIs love getting the athletes, okay? Because why? There's a ton of money in it, okay? But they don't care about, the education that these kids are getting. I was teaching at a university in the state of South Carolina, which the state of South Carolina is one of the states that was on what's called the SHOT list. The SHOT list were some of the worst states educating Black kids. And 89% of Black kids graduating from public schools in the state of South Carolina were underprepared for college. I had students in my college class who could not read, but they had a high school diploma. Tell me, how do you get a high school diploma and you can't read? Well, you probably can run and jump and throw and do things that, will allow those institutions to profit off of you, irregardless of the fact that they are set up not to succeed in life. So what did that small HBCU do in the state of South Carolina? We did double work. The professors, we would teach the content. We would also teach them the basic skills the public schools did not give them. So I had students in my office. I'm teaching them how to read. And I'm teaching them the content in religion. And King is getting at that kind of resistance is why we have some of these fundamental issues. So he sees we have some big challenges that are named on the screen that we must learn how to live together as brothers and sisters, or we're going to perish together as fools. He gives 3 warnings, one of which that I will mention. He was like, look, racism could be the thing that is the undoing of this country. All right, and I want you to sit with that for a minute. What do you think he meant by that? I think it'll be clear by the time I go through just a few more slides. Because racism is not just about hating Black and brown people. It's much deeper than that. And so when people hear racism, they always hear prejudice. And racism is not just prejudice. It's refusing to structure the country in a more healthy and holistic way. And it plays out in so many different ways depending on the group. Now, it started with what was done to the Native Americans. We call it genocide. That's what it's called. That then gets followed with over 200 years of legal slavery. That then gets followed with another century of neo-slavery, a system of apartheid that then morphs into mass incarceration. And more African Americans have been incarcerated than were enslaved. But we love to always sort of look back. And now you look at now the pivot to not all immigrants, but Black and brown immigrant communities are under assault in this country. So when he talks about this could be the thing that is the undoing of the country, I want you to kind of sit with that. Now, it's interesting, students of history, and I love to just show this slide, not because I'm saying America's just going to disappear, but if you were to study what happened the decades leading up to the collapse of the Roman Empire. And Gibbon just gives an interesting list. And if you were to hold that list up to what you see happening in this country, it is interesting. Now, there's maybe a couple I want to just point to. If I had a laser, I would point my laser there, but for now I'm tall enough I could just reach there and you can kind of see. Inflation, okay, I just kind of want to point to that and what we see with our national debt. That as a country, we are not in a good place. We're not on a sustainable path with what's going on with the national debt. That the interest on that debt is now going to eclipse what we are spending in so many other areas. So that's something that's not sustainable. And what was so interesting is you also had this thing here. Political incompetence. That you would get some of these emperors that, they were not leaders. I mean, they were, it was just the most bizarre things the way some of these emperors would rule, okay? Just completely incompetent. And it was weakening the empire to have people who were that incompetent at the very top. So what ends up happening after King is assassinated is we see, we pivot to the era of mass incarceration. You get the whole Southern strategy. They say, look, we can't use the N-word. We got to change how we do our racism. We're going to use the word criminals. All right? So anytime you hear folks talking about thugs, criminals, all that is dog whistling. Okay, and it goes all the way back to the Nixon administration when they're saying, look, after the civil rights, we got to change up how we do stuff. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing, but we got to call it something different. So when they're talking about Black and brown immigrants in this country, what's the language? It's always around, it's crime, it's crime. Do you not know that was the same mythology used on the other side of Reconstruction? That's what then allowed them to do things like sharecropping, convict lease. Do you know the history of convict leasing? I mean, you should do a lunch and learn just on convict leasing. Okay, this was going on all the way up to World War II in this country, which was nothing but re-enslaving the people who were constitutionally free. Coming up with these horrible laws that was called the Black Codes. And you can be arrested for all kinds of things and then sent to prison camps where you were just basically being re-enslaved. Okay, so that strategy, there's a whole history to it. And some of the reasons they need to arrest these people is because, well, they're free now. They had to create this narrative instead of we need to do right by them. It's trying to convince white people, these people are a threat. They're going to hurt us. And that's so effective. It's sadly how effective that is. So this is the America that unfolds over the next few decades because King said our challenges, how do we learn how to live together as brothers and sisters? Well, we decided, now we're gonna do these things. And the reason I stopped at 2008 is because the country begins a deeper, darker pivot. And to me, the election of Barack, as they say on the right, Hussein Obama, was the event that changed America. Now, I just remember in the African-American community, we were just like, when he was running, we were like, this is nice, it's cool, he's not gonna be elected. America's not gonna have a black person as a president. And he just kept running. And wow, we look up on Inauguration Day and there's this black man and his wife being sworn in as the president. I just remember with tears in my eyes. It was a moment. And while many herald it as we're now post-racial, we didn't want to go that far, but there was no escaping the symbolism. It was a big deal. But it unleashed something in this country. Started with the Tea Party. Tea Party says, we got to take our country back. And it started not too long after he was sworn in. And it became this movement that was not being resisted by our white sisters and brothers in churches. They were not coming out in mass, shutting that stuff down. When you start seeing a resurgence in the Klan, when you start seeing these white nationalist groups saying, we're losing our country. The white progressive establishment, a lot of our white sisters and brothers in Christian churches were just like looking the other way when they were talking about apes and baboons in the White House. And this stuff, they were trafficking in this stuff for 8 years. And before you ever get Make America Great Again, you got the Tea Party saying, we're taking our country back. And of course, we know what happened after that. We got the anti-Obama president. You think of, let's go back, how many scandals? How many times has this man been married? When he gets off Air Force One and it's raining, he opens up his umbrella so his wife can go down the stairs. So the folks who were all about focus on the family, this man could talk about his faith in Jesus Christ in such a deep and articulate way. He could tell you the books of the Bible. He can talk about asking God for forgiveness. But then he gets followed by someone who is the complete antithesis of this. When he shows up to the White House for the peaceful transition of power, he gets out the limo and walks and leaves his wife. And they were just like, oh my gosh, they run and put the umbrella over her. And this is the guy that white evangelicals believe is going to save the nation. And not only did you get in the 80 percentiles of white evangelicals, you were getting so many white sisters and brothers, even in the Catholic Church, supporting this. And the last point about the cruelty is one of the things that really just stands out in my mind, that it's such a cruel administration when you think of what is going on with ICE. What's up with all with all the masks? Who wore masks back in Jim Crow? The Klan did. Yes, it's really mind blowing. And you have these folks with masks on, doing all sorts of things, and I've heard the stories. Sitting around listening to you all who are on the front lines, you see the impact of this cruelty, of people having to hide in their homes. And while it's beautiful and it's powerful to see folks doing what they can to mobilize, it says something that this is the kind of country that we have become. So the kind of social fragmentation that King talks about is the foray into the turmoil we are in as a nation. This is what's been happening since the Obama presidency, the chaos we have descended into as a country. Who can forget what happened in 2001? Just when we thought all the crazy from 2000 was over, we was like, whew, we made it, we survived. And it was followed by this. Look at that. And they're attacking the Capitol with Bibles, using the name of God. So the existential question of our day is, can a country as deeply divided as we are, can this country stand? This is why you probably need, I'm good at these commercials, you're going to need this retreat in Santa Barbara to do a real study of this book. If you join the mailing list, one of the op-eds I want to share with you is an article I wrote about the country's descent into nihilism. And the second point talks about that empires often collapse not only because of external threats, but because they become internally consumed. They sort of collapse on themselves. And so that piece, devouring itself, I think is going to be a very, very helpful piece for you to think about. In fact, there are 3 articles that I've written. The first is The Fight for the Soul of America. That's then followed by the devouring itself, because that's kind of what we're doing as a country. I mean, go back to some of these images. I mean, we're divided against us. We're devouring ourselves as a country, as a people. And so what the church does is it's facing a choice as to how we're going to respond. Are we going to be captives of fear, the nationalism, the outrage, or are we going to exercise leadership? And this, my sisters and my brothers, as I pivot to my close, is the question of the day. This is where we have real opportunities as people of faith to take up this important work. It is not our role, it is not our calling to prop up and to be the puppet of the state. Now, there are some faith communities that believe that is the work of the church. And we see that with Christian nationalism. It is wedded to the administration and the political structure in very unhealthy ways. But there are some folks who maybe they're not a part of the Christian nationalist movement, but they're silent. They're silent. And silence is complicity. When horrible things are happening and you don't raise your voice, then it sends the message that you're okay with it. So remember the statement I said about thinking about not just your time, your intellectual, spiritual resources, your talents, your financial resources, but also your friends and your networks. You need to be associated with things that are on the right side of these issues. And I tell people, every church isn't the church. Just because it calls itself the church doesn't mean it's the church. You need to be associated with things that are committed to justice, committed to the gospel, committed to what is genuinely and authentically good. Because what are we called to as the people of God? We are called to bearing witness and being faithful to what? To the gospel, to God's kingdom. that our primary loyalty is not to this nation, but it is to God's kingdom. And we can love our country and we can be good citizens, but if it's ever a choice between ultimate allegiance, well, my ultimate allegiance is to Christ. In the first century, to confess Jesus as Kyrios was a political statement because the Roman Empire thought it was divine. Emperors thought they were gods. And when you start having these people that were saying, nope, the emperor's not Lord, Jesus is. That's why they found themselves in the arenas. That's why they found themselves being persecuted. That's why they weren't getting the keys to the city. Like you see a lot of folks in churches today. Oh, they love us. Well, Jesus said they're going to hate you because of me. So when you find that you're on the other side of the socio-political establishment, you shouldn't hang your head down. You should feel good about that. Jesus told you that's exactly what's going to happen. If the world doesn't love you, they're not patting you on the back. They're not trying to open doors for you because you don't want to do this. Wrong way. If you do that, you could benefit yourself. I mean, you want to be a part of this whole 2025 stuff. You'll find that there's going to be mechanisms that's going to reward you. Yeah.
I'm sure everybody could hear me, right? With cannons on the top, and on the top you have the church, one of the first, the Anglican church, yep, right, and then the Catholic church. But you have the Anglican church on the top, and at the very bottom was the dungeon that held African women. And then the master would take the women and bring them up to do whatever he wanted to, and if they didn't, they'd have these huge ball and chain, and they'd chain them in the sun until they gave in, right? So one of the things I've been wrestling with as a pastor is the church is not just complicit, and also using missions, yeah, as a way to colonize, absolutely, Africa and subjugate. Yeah. So I question whether the church is just complicit or the church doesn't realize that it's in their DNA.
Ooh. Great question. And that's, I do want to encourage you to take a look at the recent UN resolution that was passed on March the 25th that declares the transatlantic slave trade and the enslavement of Africa. So those 43 preambular paragraphs lays out the case. And it shows that what happened to Africans had never been done in human history before, and it hasn't been done since. Like, that a part of why there's such a fight to ever teach and to help people to understand, yes, there's oppression of all kinds, but can we understand the unique dimensions of this manifestation of oppression so that we can do something in a specific way to address it versus always trying to blur it? Well, all communities. Yes, all communities suffer. We're talking about this. So I so often tell my white sisters and brothers, stop changing the subject when we're talking about black issues. We're going to talk about that because you do see everything from papal bulls to laws being changed, to stolen history that's in all these museums in all the parts of Europe, the Americas. So I was at the Vatican a few years ago trying to have, we were having conversations with officials there about what do they do with this history. And this stuff, it has been ongoing for the past few years as Christianity is reckoning with just how deep they were involved in it, how they have economically benefited from this. And then now what's going to be the next steps is always where it breaks down. That's a great question. Let's circle back to that. I provided a resource for you because King talked about what happens when a country is obsessed with the guns of war. And I think his comments are very, very instructive to what happens when societies are in conflict with each other. He talks about they sort of lose their social perspective. And it was wonderful. We got all these wonderful pictures of the moon. It was wonderful. It costs a lot of money to do that. People can't afford to get sick in this country. They don't know how they're going to put food on the table. But then there's all this waste. We need a new ballroom, okay? So he talks about a country that just has completely lost its social perspective. That there is this strengthening the forces of reaction. And this is the one I want to focus on and issue a warning to those of us who are part of the fight of justice. Be careful about being too reactionary. I cannot help but express my profound gratitude for the clarity and courage of Pope Leo. These are two quotes that have meant a lot to me, of just seeing someone, in Rome that's speaking truth to power. And the second quote was more recent, probably right in the midpoint of the war with Iran, when we have our Secretary of Defense, misquoting Psalms and talking about bullets and missiles, finding their mark, in a very, very problematic way. So what are the implications? At JustFaith, I thank God that we're exercising leadership not just through these incredible programs, but through what we stand for. And we're doing some incredible work, everything from the array of programs. And please get the brochure so that you see the full scope of programs. I mean, everything from doing anti-racism work, immigration, poverty, eco-justice, how to do advocacy work. We have, how many? Over 20? Over 20 programs where you get to spend time doing deep formational community work that will help you to understand a different facet of your faith and understand your neighbors in a better way. And I think God is also calling JustFaith to exercise leadership in the public square. And so we need your help and your ongoing support. As I just came back from the United Nations in Geneva. And so God is using JustFaith in a lot of tremendous and new ways. So it's going to be a part of this frontier that we are on together, responding to this moment. We want you to be involved in this work, and there's a variety of ways you can be involved. Starting, a small group. We've got a new program. I'm going to let Heidi run up and do a quick commercial about it, that we would, love to support you in launching. Start a conversation, even if that conversation is you start your own podcast. You get a group of people together on Zoom, and you're like, hey, let's just talk about this. And if you want to reach out and say, Dr. Brogdon, would you hop on Zoom and talk with this group? Absolutely. I would be more than happy to. That, use the networks, the associations, the spaces that you are in to promote the work that we need to close this gap that King alluded to in his work. And the last thing is I wrote an op-ed about justice movements losing their soul that I do want you to maybe put your eyes on and to study, because we must be careful in this moment of such extremism that we don't become the very thing that we hate. That a part of the work we're doing at Just Faith is, yes, it's about clarity, it's about courage, it's about community, but it's also about love and a kind of discipline that doesn't give in to the darkness. It doesn't give in to the evil. You cannot fight darkness with darkness. You must fight darkness with light. You cannot overcome evil with evil. You must overcome evil with good. And you cannot overcome evil unless you are attending to your inner life and you are a part of a community that's nurturing you so that you can keep doing the work. So I'm excited and honored to engage with you, to have a time of Q&A. Look at that, old pro with the presentation. I didn't even have to get the sign to say, stop. And when we get to the end, we do want to tell you about our exciting new program that's launching next month. Questions? And please just raise your hand so we can get the mic to you so that people on Zoom will be able to hear you.
Thank you. And our community really has benefited from Just Faith. We have our commissions, one in particular is doing some hard work, and it's called Anti-Racism as Spiritual Transformation. And that's the whole issue, spiritual transformation. And I just want to share with you something that I have noticed in the past, I don't know how many years now, with our not only our community, but another one that I belong to, Roman Catholic Women Priests, which is also using Just Faith and trying to move around toward spiritual transformation, but they call themselves good troublemakers, which I thought fine. You're still too scared to say anti-racism. We will work on that, and that's what the point I'm getting to. I've noticed that tone policing can arrest any kind of spiritual transformation. Watch your mouth. Watch what you say. Do not insult people. There's a certain curriculum you are allowed to look at. There are certain leaders you are allowed to follow. Martin Luther King is wonderful, but we don't need to learn about Fred Hampton and how he tried to unite Latinos, Blacks, whites. We don't need to talk about Brother Malcolm X. You don't need to do that. And it's like, if we're going to get anywhere, we need to start listening. And the dominant culture needs to quit being offended every time we're making any kind of progress and telling us what we are allowed to think and do. And one other thing, when is Just Faith, or does Just Faith have anti-racism in Spanish? Latinos in particular, I think we have a unique type of racism that has been mixed with caste systems that the U.S. does not have, but we have in the Southern Americas, because we are as racist as they come.
Yeah, wonderful reflections. One of the things we're doing as an organization is we're developing and implementing a new strategic planning process that's going to, guide the next 5 years of the work in which we're doing. And some of the comments and themes that you've mentioned definitely emerged in the strategic charrette that we had, where we had staff, board members, board emeritus, just sitting around doing some careful horizon scanning work. And we're thinking about what is our work going to look like going forward. And so, if I'll make sure to get you my card, please, continue to be in conversation with us, because I want to take those comments and make sure we circle back around with our staff, because we do have one bilingual program. We hope that that's going to be something that's going to continue to grow. Because if you look at the growth of global Christianity, where is it? It is in Africa, it is in Asia, and it is in South America. that's where Christianity is exploding. And I want our organization to see that there's going to be opportunities for us, because one of the principles of Catholic social teaching is solidarity. How can we be in solidarity with global Christians? And we're not going to be able to do everything, but I think there's going to be some real opportunities for us to find some ways to serve. And I think that will translate into some different kinds of programs that are going to address different issues in different languages besides English. So I hope to God that we're going to go in that direction because there are issues global Christians are facing that look different, and I don't want Just Faith to be so ethnocentric, so U.S.-centric that, you know, our issues are the center of everything. It's like, no, there are communities facing some other issues. How can we have relationships where we learn about their issues and they help us develop programs that can translate in powerful ways in their own context? So thank you for sharing that. And that's also why having educational spaces that Black and brown folks control is so important in this historical moment. And we'll need the white philanthropic community to want to support those kinds of mechanisms where you don't have that kind of policing happening. That's fantastic. Yes, sir.
So in the conversation, I've heard something, or I've not heard something that I'm curious about. There's a lot of intersection of mentalities and treatment between racist practices and homophobia and transphobia. How do you see that intersection playing out with a ministry like Just Faith Ministries, or how does that, in the broader spectrum of equality and justice, how do the two, where is that intersection, and how do you mesh them together to bring a truly just society?
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Coming out of higher education background in progressive spaces, you know, I've been doing intersectional work for so many years. And so one of the growing challenges for an ecumenical organization is how can you be an educational partner for various faith traditions? And there is a doctrinal and a political dance you do with these various networks. Some of the newer partners that we're in conversation with, like the Episcopal Church, really excited about that. The Cooperative Baptist Fellowship, very, very progressive commitments. These are commitments that we have that show up in some of our programs in a lot of different ways. And so, yeah, it's something we are aware of. Intersectionality is so important. It goes back to, you know, some of the core arguments Dr. King was making, that we don't get to community without acceptance and understanding each other and learning how do we, with all our differences, live together.
Have anybody online that's holding for a question or would like to join in the conversation now?
I don't see anything
Think
in the
about it.
chats yet.
Think about it, and we'll go on to the people in the room. Thanks for being there. I think we have about 10 to 12 people online. Oh, yeah, I'm coming.
Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Great questions.
Thank you for an incredible presentation. So I work with an organization that is an interfaith organization called the Board Center, and we live in Los Angeles, one of the most religiously diverse areas of the country, not much less the world. And we are partnering with the Muslim Public Affairs Council to create a multi-faith response to the current constitutional crisis. And by doing that, we hope to partner in such a way that the Muslim Public Affairs Council is providing action, while the Board Center, from a multi-faith perspective, is helping us hold the faith perspective rather than just action. So how do we do that? Is something we're actually, we're putting it together, right?
Okay.
And Immaculate Heart Community is a partner in that. So my question to you is, how does Just Faith approach the multi-faith relationships? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense, and that's, so both of these questions are really connected to the expanding and growing nature of the work that we're doing as an organization, that for, 24 plus years, Just Faith has been doing formational work in predominantly Catholic spaces. And in recent years has pivoted to become, more ecumenical programs that are addressing not just sort of spiritual issues, but the intersection of these spiritual theological issues with very, very important social issues. And so one of the big areas we see on the horizon is an opportunity to do partnership work, because every nonprofit, it's about, fundraising. And what the philanthropic community is saying is you look in any community, there's just so many nonprofits. There's such a reduplication of things. This organization does this, and there's similarity. And, the philanthropic community is like, why don't you all work together, put a proposal together, and we'll fund it, and it could benefit both organizations. And so, we're currently in conversations with 3 major bodies. So we're kind of, on the frontier of expanding some of what we're doing, even though formational work with these programs will remain very, very central. But there are some opportunities where other entities can benefit from our programs. There is a unique skill set that the executive director has for Just Faith that could benefit other organizations, and we're in conversations about, are there some opportunities for us to work together so that what we do going forward will look a little different while our commitments remain the same. And I trust that your organization and many are kind of in a similar space. It is a matter of, this is what I always tell my students in theology, the tension is good. That, we'll have these partnerships where they're bringing something different, but this is something that we're bringing that's important, and we hold to it. And you can do it in a way where you're still true to what you stand for and what you do, but there is also an openness and a practicality of, well, we can also do some things together. And that does reflect, our commitments as well. And so, if you need a conversation partner, I'm working with a lot of nonprofit leaders who we're all in the same boat. We're all trying to figure out how to do some of that, because partnerships really maximizes our impact, that we can be much more effective coordinating and working together than we can be working in these silos, especially when you see the coordination that's happening in Washington, D.C., and they're effective using the mechanisms they have access to create chaos and suffering. So we need to be equally coordinated in resisting. And I love that love that partnership idea. That's exciting. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, thank you for being with us. Thank you for being who you are. I want to thank Just Faith on a very personal level. I'm in the Immaculate Heart community and work in our justice paradigms as I can. But having studied through Just Faith on The Land Is Not Empty and Just Faith and the indigenous people who have been so overlooked, just changed my life. I decided to jump into that pool and called up a local tribal leader. And so now we've become good friends with the Chumash people on whose land we live. And so because of the opportunity for us to heighten our awareness for yet another group of people who are beloved by God and who have helped us through the centuries, little things are happening. We have a scholarship that we're trying to support young people in. And I get to go to the graduation of one young woman, a young single mother with 2 children, graduating in social work from Cal State Channel Islands. And so I'm bringing a lot of the love of my sisters with me. So thank you. I think your work is important,
Thank you.
cogent, sensitive, and focused. Keep it up.
Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing that good word. That was, I think last night's talk ended on, because last night's talk was more sort of global in scope and focus. And one of the participants asked the question about how not to get overwhelmed in the face of everything. And I talked about a sermon I preached from Genesis chapter 1, the creation story, where you see God bringing order out of chaos, and that there's something in God doing something specific on one day, stopping to observe what was done, seeing that it's good, even though everything's not finished, there's not complete order. But he stopped to observe that that was good. And you just naming something that's good is so important. And justice organizations and those of us who are doing justice work, we've got to do both. We've got to talk about the nature of the problem, and then we also have got to lift up wonderful examples, both from the past, wonderful things that are happening in the present moment, to remind us and to inspire us to keep pushing ahead. Thank you for sharing.
Hello. There, I can hear it. A few months ago, I was in Poland, and Europeans tend to be much more open-minded than Americans. And I wanted to ask you a question because you were just in Geneva. But before I do, I was in, right before I left Poland, I went to Auschwitz. And that's a tough place to be.
Yes.
And they left it pretty much the way it was.
Yeah.
We don't do that here. We kind of pave over that. Just want to know, what were you doing at the UN in Geneva? What were you speaking about?
Yeah, that's a part of this expanding work that we're doing in Just Faith. I'm a part of an advisory body that's called the Permanent Forum for People of African Descent. And it was started by the General Assembly almost a decade ago. They launched what's called the International Decade for People of African Descent. And then after about 5 years, they weren't doing a really great job engaging with the global African community. So they had this idea, maybe we should appoint Black leaders, in select countries and let them organize this for us. And in 5 years, we have built the biggest mechanism within the UN that's doing racial justice work. It's an incredible body. So the recent resolution that came out, that's some of the energy behind our work, that, there is a push to do reparative justice, and we're trying to use the mechanism of the UN to put pressure on states to do material things to address issues of systemic racism. And so I tell you, there are some countries that's doing some incredible things, but then there's countries, and we're part of one, that withdrew its support of the Permanent Forum on last year, even though it didn't give us a dime. We are part of this on our own dime, and the civil society contingents from America, it's pretty substantive. And so Professor Justin Hansford, who was appointed by the General Assembly, he's a law professor at Howard. He's our rep in the U.S. And when this was being opened up, he was told that I was one of the persons that needed to be around the table. And so I was invited to the pre-launch and have been a part of that work ever since, doing a lot of back-end administrative support, as well as issuing statements of that nature. So I'm a pretty good administrator, and I believe that the Black community needs more than just Moseses, folks who are always out front speaking, that we need more Nehemiahs. We need people who know how to build, who know how to get things done, how to do infrastructure things that sustain movements. And it's one of the best kept secrets about Dr. King. People don't know how skilled he was at organizing work and in speeches talking about change and specific things that are being done, not just, I have a dream, He would talk about how many jobs were created, how many demands were made in a particular county, how many demands were met. I mean, very, very specific things. And that's some of the work I'm very passionate about, of supporting the work of the forum with that kind of administrative mechanism, coordinating all of these various organizations that are a part of it. So it's the coolest thing to be a part of, to get to say you're going to the UN to do work. And so it's amazing. But that's what Just Faith Ministry is growing into, and it's exciting to be a part of.
Can we check back with our friends online to see if there's any questions?
I see Lucia. Oh my gosh, hello.
How about in the room? Is Lucia, are you going to say something? You're on mute.
Yes. Louis, I so appreciate your talk. It's been so inspiring on all levels. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And what a blessing to see your face. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
See a hand over here.
Thank you so much for sharing. And while you were speaking of what you just said about Nehemiah, it reminded me of the praxis cycle, which very quickly, you have your experience, you analysis, the reflection, the action.
Yes.
And my question is, can you share with us an effective way of doing an evaluation after an action, after people do the work, especially around the challenge of working intersectionality, going across cultures, different languages? How do you evaluate, see what might have been missed, what might have been done better, and do it in a way that really helps us move forward?
Oh, well, you're reminding me of my institutional effectiveness days back at Bluefield University, getting to do SAC COC accreditation. I used to tell professors and administrators all the time that the main thing is to have a mechanism in place that goes through that full loop. And even if you don't get it right the first time, so, one of my big proposals I made at the UN was to say, we'll have all these organizations, they're all coming, they want to make statements. And we'll spend all these days hearing from experts, folks making statements, then we'll come back the next year and we do the same thing. And I'm like, can we have focused goals? That there's a couple of things we are going to try to work on together over the course of the year. And we're going to track some of what we do and report it back to the permanent forum. So the first thing we do when we come back is we present an annual report to the body. Here's what we did. And we come away with maybe just anywhere from 2 to 5 takeaways, what worked and what didn't work. And then 1 or 2 recommendations as we think about the work we're going to do the next year. We use that data to then inform the planning so that there's continuity between the work we're doing from year 1 to year 2. But it's hard because you get folks, they have these big titles, they're running these big fancy organizations, and folks just kind of love talking about issues instead of tracking work. And we don't have to track everything, but can we track enough to just see how effective we are at doing some of these things? I just think that would be such a gift to folks that's doing particularly racial justice work. So I'm trying to get them to say, let's have a focused Black agenda around maybe things like education, criminal justice reform, in something either related to economics or healthcare. And we're going to work on that for the next 5 to 20 years. And there's plenty of other issues that we can tie to those goals. But the work of this global mechanism we can do structured work in a way where we can actually see how we're moving the needle on certain things, where are the places where there are particular challenges, and then what do we need to do to address them in the next year. Moses don't want to hear that kind of stuff. They want to tell Pharaoh to let my people go. Nehemiah's just like, we're trying to build a wall, okay? And it's a process. And to start from the ground up and to complete the wall so that the city's protected, that's something that's very, very specific. And we need leaders of racial justice work that have that sort of Nehemiah mindset. So I bet you all never heard that before, have you? Nehemiah's, yes.
I would really like to see what JustFaith could do in presenting social justice about Black women, and not just Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth, but the Octavia Butlers, the Maya Angelos, the Stacey Abrams, all of the women who are moving, and yet somehow they don't get those positions that are of influence. I wonder why.
I hope, and thank you for saying that, and that's so important. I hope that one of our upcoming AFJ speakers real soon, I hope, will be M. Sean Copeland. She's an African-American Roman Catholic womanist theologian. She is, tremendous, does incredible work. I've got some wonderful colleagues and leaders that we hope in the coming months and years that's going to help us to attend to that very important point. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Is that my time? Oh, okay. Okay.
Well, this has been wonderful, inspirational.
Thank you. Can I have 1 minute to let Heidi just tell them about this new program?
Please.
Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Heidi Villaluz. I serve as the Director of Communications and Marketing for JustFaith Ministries, but I'm also just so incredibly pleased that Lewis is here, that we have these JustFaith events hosted by the Immaculate Heart community, because I'm born and raised in Los Angeles. I'm locally based. My card is on the table. It has a Louisville area code, but I am here. So if anyone needs support, getting groups off the ground or connecting, I'm here in local. I also serve as a master catechist in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, and I've served on the task force for racism for the ADLA. And so all these issues that we've been talking about today are very much steeped in my experience of faith here in Los Angeles. And so, is this the clicker, Lewis? Let's see if I get this right. And so we just want to let you know, by the way, if you haven't scanned the QR code, I'm going to do a number random generator in just a few moments. So if you haven't filled out the form, this is a great time to finish filling out that sign-up form to get that book from Lewis. And then, everyone got that scanned? Okay. If you haven't, or you're not familiar with JustFaith, or if you don't know what our most recent programs are, we're coming out with new programs all the time. We have an all-program brochure on the very back table, and it has a listing of everything that we have. And so some of the questions I heard, are the programs people mentioned in there, the Indigenous Justice Program, The Land Is Not Our Own. We have 3 on racial justice. And someone asked about interfaith work, interreligious work. We do have a few programs that are spiritually based, so spiritually but not religiously based. And so most of our programs are either ecumenical, so broadly Christian, some of them specifically Catholic, but we do have 4 programs that are spiritually based, and so would be great for an interfaith community as well. So this is a sampling of what we have, but I would recommend picking up this brochure in the back if you'd like to see everything we have. And then we're also really excited to announce, this is kind of this weekend is the inaugural announcing of the newest program, which is called Tend My Sheep, Addressing Poverty Through Catholic Social Teaching. As Lewis mentioned, we have a lot of work to do in all of our churches, the Catholic Church included. And so if you've never taken a program, or if you have folks who have never taken a Just Faith or any justice program, this is a great foundational program to walk through. It's 7 sessions for each of the themes of Catholic social teaching. There's a lot of information on the back of the postcard and a QR code to scan to learn more. But this is the one that we're going to be sharing out, and we're so grateful to be able to share the information with you at a time such as this, when our churches need to come back to foundational basics a lot of times to get people to wake them from the slumber of what the moment that we're in right now. What's that? Oh, the QR code? Yes. And so the last thing I want to mention, there's also some cards in the back and a sign. We are here with extreme gratitude to the Immaculate Heart community for making Just Faith programs available to LA communities, particularly underserved communities. And so there's a form on our website, there's a QR code. So if there are communities that you know of that would like to bring Just Faith programs for the first time, or small groups, ministries sometimes that don't have funding, individuals that need scholarships, we have funding, thanks to the collaboration with the Immaculate Heart community, to be able to provide programs, books, printing, registration costs, to make it available. And Just Faith nationally, we also never want cost to ever be a barrier for any community, any person to have access to justice education. And so we're also happy to work on a sliding fee scale with any community anywhere. And so we're really trying to get the word out about the Immaculate Heart support of Just Faith programs locally. And so just a couple moments, I'm going to do the random number generator to find our winner. But thank you. And I'm going to hand this back to whom? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad to know you're local, so we'll be in touch with you. You know, I think one of the things I'm aware of as a white woman is how much I don't know, how much we haven't been taught in terms of the reality of our history and the, you know, really what the patterns have been, as Reverend Brogdon just told us, and leading up. We think it's just happening now, but there's been this trajectory for, you know, centuries that we need to know about that. We need to educate ourselves in order to really be articulate and to stand up to the issues and really understand the depth of what we're experiencing. So that's what Just Faith offers, is that kind of immersion into the history and the linkages of the past, and really kind of, it's empowering once you start understanding what you don't know. So your work is incredibly important. We really bless you in the work and look forward to partnering with you. And I have, Jim always puts this down here. Thank you, a gift from our community to you. So thank you for being here today, and thanks for the staff. So come back next month. We'll be back.